You're listening to The Breakfast Show on Faith FM. It's now the time for our interview, and today we're interviewing Mary from Right for Life. She is a pro-life advocate, and she's going to be sharing with us a little bit of her story and her experiences. Mary, good morning to you. Thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, thank you, Scaffy. Good morning to you too.
I'm glad to have you here. Mary, first up, what is Right for Life?
Right to Life is a non-political, non-denominational organisation, and we work nationally to uphold the sanctity of human life.
That's amazing.
So we're not funded by the government. We receive all of our funding via donations from people who support our work, and our basic premise is that we try to protect every human life from conception to natural death.
And Mary,
so it's pretty tough. It's daunting and it's controversial.
Okay, absolutely. Look, and I want to ask you this, like, what made you choose to be involved with Right for Life? Why is that an important cause to your heart?
Oh, I grew up in a large family, and the family were very much orientated towards social justice. We had a number of people who used to join our family for Christmas lunch that didn't have anyone, and my family were involved with Right to Life. As children, we used to place the stickers on the envelopes when they sent them a newsletter out. So in those days, we had it in our background. We came from a large Catholic family, and it was just part of our life.
Can you tell us a little bit about some stories, so perhaps some recent stories that are worthwhile sharing? You mentioned to me that there is a book that was recently published by someone that was involved with Right to Life. What is this book about?
Well, we were contacted by a young woman, she's probably about 30, and her child was diagnosed with a disability in the womb, and she was pressured the whole way during her pregnancy to have an abortion. And she said, no, I'm not going to do that. And she was told her child wouldn't have the quality of life and the life would be difficult for her. So she had a lot of pressure. And now her little son is 18 months old, and she's written a book. And I'd like to support her by asking people to look up the book. It's called I'm Still Here, and the mother is Whitney Anderson, and it's written from the perspective of the unborn baby talking to its mum. So saying, I know you're upset, Mum, I know you're worried, I know you think that things won't be okay, but it's a very beautiful book, and it's available on Amazon. I'm Still Here. And it's a beautiful story how she told us that she was pressurized the whole of her pregnancy and that there's hope. So her baby is now 18 months old. He has spina bifida and he's had a lot of operations. But she's also set up a WhatsApp group for young mums or dads who have baby with a similar disability so they can support each other. So she's quite an amazing mother.
Wow, that is an incredible story, and what a beautiful angle as well, because we often in this whole abortion conversation, we often don't really think about, hey, what would it be from the perspective of the baby that's being developed there, and she brought that angle up, which I think it's amazing. I just want to talk to you a little bit about that something that you shared there, that she was pressured from all sides. So that you that have been working with people, with women that are faced with this decision, should I go through an abortion or not? Tell us a little bit about those pressures that they experience. Where are these pressures coming from normally?
Well, sometimes they're coming from within the family, like you won't cope, you don't have any family support. For example, they don't have any family in Australia. I know an international student who was pressured. Sometimes the pressure comes from within, thinking, I'm ashamed. A person I know, she was sent to Australia to study. Her parents have spent a lot of money on it, and now she had to drop out of school. So the pressure can come from within. So when her family found out that she was expecting a baby, they were thrilled. It may not have been the right circumstances. So sometimes if they think a baby may have a disability, particularly babies with Down syndrome, it's automatically, well, you wouldn't want to have an imperfect child. That's how it's seen, particularly by medical staff. The other thing is that fathers are not allowed to really have any participation in the decision. It's a woman's decision. So even if a father may say, I'll support the mum to have the baby, the mother can still have an abortion. And we've had traumatised men call our office and say, I'm a grieving dad, I have no power, I have no say. So the woman may be the one who says, I'm going to have an abortion, and the other parent may not want it. So there's lots of different pressures, and also pressures from economic or social problems, people who have domestic violence. Sometimes it's seen as the easy solution.
And Mary, tell me a little bit about it, because a lot of people, they criticize pro-life advocacy and is saying, yeah, it is too easy for you to be talking about it from the sidelines, but then nobody's really doing anything for anyone. You're just wanting these, young ladies or these women to have their babies, but then they are really left to their own. Is this always the case, or have you have any experience that tells us the contrary?
Well, definitely from the contrary. There are groups in Australia in particular. There's a group called Pregnancy Help Australia, and not only do they do free non-denominational counselling, non-directed counselling, but if women ring and say, look, the reason I'm thinking about it is I can't afford the pram, I have these problems, they can connect them in with different groups. So if you look up the website, Pregnancy Help Australia, in every state there's support, and not just for pregnancy. There's a lot of women who have had abortions who we think about today, and are grieving. We also have support for those women's grief support. In addition, in Victoria in particular, in 2015, they passed a law saying that groups could not stand outside an abortion clinic and offer alternatives to women. So there were different groups in Melbourne and they're still there, they just have to be further away from the clinic than they used to be, they actually offer women financial support. And in particular, we have calls to our office, and we do connect people up in any way we can with counselling or practical help. Or I had an international student, I helped her for a year. There's also a group in South Australia called Mothers Without Medicare. So they have programs to assist people without Medicare. And also in WA, there's a group for teenage pregnancies. They can live in, they can learn life skills. So if anyone wants assistance, they can always contact our office, and we can put them in contact with different groups to help.
It's amazing to see how many people actually do care, and they're offering really practical help. It stands out to me that particularly that one where, you could adopt a new mom for 1 year and be there to support them and to help. In what ways can someone that's listening right now, for example, and they have a woman in their community and she had a baby and she's going through difficult circumstance financially, economically, socially, etc. In what ways can someone, let's say, that's touched by that story, or let's say church members, in what ways can they support that mother?
Well, I think there's a number of ways, but the key is listening first of all, to finding out where does that person come from. Are they worried about finances? And often people won't tell you. They'll be very stressed about it, but they maybe feel ashamed, or they don't want to tell you a situation. You have to really listen carefully. Mm-hmm. And it could be through a small church group. You could have 2 or 3 of you. It's quite difficult to do it all by yourself, as I know, having helped that young mother. And I went every Sunday to help her and folded the baby's clothes. By the end of the year, we were quite exhausted, but the baby is now 15 and he has little brothers and sisters. That family always says to me, Aunt Mary, you changed my life. I can't bear to think of that place that I was going to end the life of my baby. So there's lots of ways we can help. If people need ways of connecting, they can call our office, and we always will like to talk to people to help them support other people. Because there's so many different ways. It's a matter of saying, right, I'm not going to just walk away.
Yes, and it's sometimes, as you mentioned, it's just being there. It's the most important thing, and being that support. Sometimes it can be with a small thing, but it already means a lot. We got a message here from Chris, and she said, my daughter went into labor at 24 weeks. She was given all the statistics for what could be wrong with the baby, and then was given the option whether to resuscitate the baby at birth or let the baby die in her arms. And she chose to keep him, and now he's a beautiful 11-year-old child.
Oh, that's a wonderful story. Yep, that's an amazing story. Thanks for sending us that story. We actually had an election brochure, I think it was in about 2010, and the story was in Victoria, and the story was a similar story. The baby is 25 weeks, and he was born early, and then he had a lot of treatment in the hospital, and then now he's fine. And we compared it with babies in Victoria who are aborted at the same age, gestational age, and maybe for no reason. That it's not as if they have a disability, and that's the reason people will often say. But we compared that and said this is discrimination, and any politician who votes for abortion will be part of our political campaigns to remove them from office, because a politician who votes for abortion and euthanasia is not fit to sit in Parliament. So that's one of our 3 key features we use to work with. So we have education, which would be our journals or website or social media. Then we have social action, as I was talking about. So you can call the office if you need help. And the third part is we work at elections or any other proposed bills that might affect life.
Absolutely. So there's a little bit of the political pressure there as well, that it's so important so that politicians can do the right thing. And speaking of that, I've noticed that in recent years, there has been a growing number of bills supporting what they call assisted dying or assisted suicide, some others call, or euthanasia, as it was previously known. And I believe you mentioned in the beginning that Right to Life also looks at protecting life from conception all the way
in
to
Australia.
Yes. Can you tell us a little bit about what's the landscape in Australia for assisted dying, and what can we do to be aware and to participating to opposing that?
Yes. Well, in every state in Australia now, and it started with Victoria in 2017, it's called VAD, Voluntary Assisted Dying. We're called VAD, and euthanasia has been legalised. So the only, and the ACT, the only place where it's still is about to be legalised is the Northern Territory, which may happen in about. A person can decide that they may want to end they might want to end their early for different reasons. I won't go into all the different.
No. So how can people get to know more about that and participate in particularly the social media campaign that you're mentioning before?
Well, we have a social media site. So we have Facebook and social media and Instagram, and it's Right to Life AUST. And the other thing people can do is they can follow pro-life sites around the world. For example, Right to Life UK, LifeSite News, Life News, Right to Life New Zealand. There are some really good doctors. There's one called Pro-Life Doctor _. He's an American obstetrician, and he's very good. He's on Instagram. The other thing is that we're running a campaign at the moment where we're asking people to contact the Prime Minister and the Federal Attorney General to oppose the use of telehealth for euthanasia. And we have that on our website. So that's another thing people can write if they're some people like letter writing, some people like to visit their MP, some people want social media, some people like to just educate themselves and talk to friends. And don't be afraid to stand up for your views when these things are discussed. And that's pretty tough. That's hard. We find it very difficult. Absolutely. Because in the community it's not always accepted.
Absolutely.
So having the courage to even say, look, I don't agree with that is quite hard for each person.
We're really grateful that you could talk to us today, and we're looking forward to chat with you another time. All the best with the work with Right to Life.